I wasn't supposed to be on the 6:20 a.m. flight to New York. My meeting with the investment board had been moved up, and I scrambled the night before to get the last available seat. Row 14, window. Nothing fancy, but it would get me there. As I stepped onto the plane, a few heads turned. Maybe it was my sharp navy blue business suit, or maybe it was the confidence I carried. I didn't think much of it. I smiled at the flight attendant, found my seat, and tucked my briefcase beneath the chair. 5 minutes later, a uniformed staff member approached. "Excuse me, ma'am, can you step off the plane for a moment?" Confused but composed, I asked, "Is there a problem?" "We need to discuss something regarding your booking," he said stiffly. Other passengers began craning their necks. I could feel the weight of their stares. Reluctantly, I gathered my things and followed him toward the exit. What happened next would change everything. Outside the plane door, 2 more airline employees were waiting. Their faces were tight, professional, but cold. One of them, a supervisor judging by the stripes on his jacket, stepped forward. "There's been a seating issue. Unfortunately, we'll need you to take a different flight," he said, barely meeting my eyes. I blinked. "A seating issue? I have a confirmed ticket and boarding pass." I pulled up the email on my phone, holding it out to them. The supervisor shook his head, almost rehearsed. "We understand. However, we're asking you to voluntarily deplane." "And if I don't?" I asked, voice steady as steel. He didn't answer. Instead, 2 airport security officers appeared behind me. Passengers from the windows inside the terminal were already gawking, phones raised. It didn't matter what I said after that. They escorted me out, suitcase, briefcase, dignity in tow. Standing in the terminal, heart pounding but face calm, I watched the plane push back from the gate without me. Big mistake. Huge mistake. Because what they didn't know was who exactly they had just messed with. I didn't storm off. I didn't scream. I simply stood there for a moment, tapping my nails lightly against the handle of my suitcase, thinking. Then I walked calmly toward the nearest lounge, pulled out my second phone, the secure one, and made a single call. It rang once. "Monica," a voice answered. "What's wrong?" "They just pulled me off a flight," I said, keeping my tone even. "I need the board notified immediately. Put the hold on the $5 billion deal. Effective now." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Yes, ma'am. I'll initiate it." I hung up without another word. The airline had no idea that the woman they had just hustled off their flight was chairwoman of the Global Equity Consortium, a group of investors about to finalize a $5 billion transportation infrastructure partnership with their parent company. That deal? Frozen. Indefinitely. And I wasn't even close to finished yet. I settled into a leather armchair in the lounge, ordered a black coffee, and watched the airport bustle around me like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, chaos was brewing behind the scenes. Within 30 minutes, my personal line started buzzing, first a junior executive, then a VP, then the CEO himself. I didn't answer a single call. Instead, I forwarded all of them to Monica, my chief of staff, with a single instruction: tell them to check the news. By noon, the headlines were everywhere: major investment deal suspended following incident at airport, $5 billion partnership in jeopardy after airline's disastrous handling of passenger, anonymous source confirms, top executive walked away after flight ejection, no names yet. No details. Just enough to make every boardroom in the company start sweating bullets. They wanted to treat me like I didn't matter. Fine. Now they could feel what it was like when someone who actually did matter decided to strike back. And I was just getting started. By early afternoon, the damage was undeniable. The airline stock had dipped 7% in less than 4 hours. News outlets were circling like sharks, scrambling for statements. Anonymous executive pulls $5 billion deal after mistreatment. Major airline faces investor revolt after humiliating blunder. Inside their headquarters, I imagined the walls sweating. Finally, around 2 p.m., my assistant Monica forwarded me an official email. It was from the airline's chief operating officer, filled with apologies, offers to personally rectify the situation, and vague promises of full accountability. I didn't respond. Silence was louder than any reply I could have given. Meanwhile, another call came in, this time from the chairman of their board. He begged Monica for a meeting. Not requested, begged. I leaned back, sipped my now cold coffee, and thought for a moment. I told Monica to schedule it, next month. Let them sweat. Let them wonder. Let them understand what it feels like to be treated like an afterthought. They had underestimated me. Now, they could pay the price. And I wasn't done yet. While the airline scrambled behind closed doors, I was already 3 steps ahead. I called a private meeting with our investment consortium. 20 of the most powerful decision-makers in the transportation, aerospace, and logistics sectors sat around that long glass table, and every eye was on me. I laid out the situation calmly, fact by fact. No dramatics. No emotions. Just pure, cold leadership. When I finished, the room was silent. Then the head of Westbridge Holdings, a titan who rarely spoke unless necessary, leaned forward and said, "We stand with you. The deal's dead." One by one, every hand at that table agreed. And with those few words, $5 billion was pulled, not just from the airline's project, but from every partnership they had with our group. It was a financial lightning strike. One they would never see coming. Until the thunder was already tearing everything apart. Their arrogance cost them everything. And I hadn't even gone public yet. The next morning, I made my move. A carefully worded press release went out under the Global Equity Consortium's letterhead. No names. No shouting. Just a precise statement, due to an incident involving the mishandling of a valued partner at one of our nation's leading airlines, Global Equity Consortium has decided to withdraw current and future investments with said carrier. We wish them well as they reflect on their operational practices. Within minutes, the story exploded. Financial networks ran with it. Industry analysts predicted billions in long-term losses. Social media ignited with speculation over what had happened, and who had been involved. Internally, the airline launched a full-scale investigation. Heads rolled. Departments pointed fingers. Even the CEO's future looked uncertain. And as for me, I was already boarding a private jet, not commercial, to New York, right on schedule. Same navy blue suit. Same calm smile. Only now, the world knew better than to underestimate me. As the wheels lifted off the runway, I gazed out the window, watching the airport shrink into the distance. No anger. No bitterness. Just clarity. Sometimes power isn't about raising your voice. It's about knowing exactly when, and how, to strike. They tried to treat me like I was invisible. Now they couldn't stop seeing me, in their meetings, their earnings reports, their shareholders' panic. $5 billion. Gone in a single day. And all it took was one woman who refused to accept being pushed aside. I closed my eyes, leaned back in my seat, and smiled. The storm I left behind was just beginning. And I wasn't losing a minute of sleep over it. 3 months later, the airline's CEO quietly resigned. Their stock was still floundering, unable to recover from the mass withdrawal of investors. News outlets had shifted their coverage, but the industry insiders remembered. Every major boardroom whispered about it, don't make the mistake they made. Meanwhile, Global Equity Consortium finalized a brand new $6 billion partnership, this time with a competitor airline that understood respect wasn't just good manners. It was good business. As for me, I moved even quieter. Bigger deals. Higher stakes. No need to explain. No need to announce. When you carry true power, the world adjusts to you. Not the other way around. One evening, as I sat in the corner booth of a quiet Manhattan restaurant, a familiar face appeared across the room, one of the airline executives who had stood silently by as I was forced off that flight. He spotted me, froze for a moment, and then looked away, almost shrinking into his chair. I didn't react. I didn't need to. His reaction said everything. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence that echoes the longest. I paid the bill, left a generous tip, and walked out into the night, the city lights flickering like 1,000 tiny reminders: respect isn't given. It's taken. And once taken, it becomes a force no one dares challenge again. The lesson they learned would live far longer than the headlines. I had simply been the one to teach it.